Hey, kia ora, good morning. Hope you're all having a super fantastic, sparkling start to Winning Wednesday. Yep, it's that day of the week where we celebrate our wins for the week. But we should be celebrating them as they occur, because winning keeps you in that forward momentum. You get that rush of, yes, I won, yay, and you want that feeling again. So you kind of get addicted to the feeling of winning, and you go out there and you do it again and again and again. And it doesn't matter if you fail, because failing is part of winning. It is that part that keeps you going and goes, okay, that way did not work. Let's try it a different way and see if we can get it to work that way. So it's all part of learning and growing. So never think of failing as, or as a breakdown, as being part of, always think of it as being part of your success. So our question for you is, what wins are you celebrating for the year? So look back over the year. I had to do this exercise on Saturday at my mastermind group. What things are we celebrating over the year? And I was like, over the year? And so I had to pull out I literally had to pull out my planner and start flipping through pages to see what wins I had for the year, and thinking back. And then I had to pull out my daily notebook, which I keep my bullet points in for these calls. I had to pull that out and start flipping through that. And then I realized that this one actually started only in July. It started on July 20th, on day 720. And now I'm up to day 875. So at least I could look at the later half of the year. I just couldn't look at the earlier part of the year because that book's somewhere around here. I'm getting organized. Trust me, I'm starting 2022 organized, ready to go, and everything else. So what wins are you celebrating for the year? I'm celebrating the continuing growth of Your Family Tree Detective, which is my genealogy business. I'm celebrating the writing I've been able to accomplish this year with the 3 flash fiction pieces that I was able to write this year. I'm celebrating getting back into writing again, which is kind of fun. I'm celebrating my birthday resolutions that I set for 2022. So there's lots of things. I came up with this list, and that was just the later half of the year. I'm actually celebrating the fact that I made the decision to stay in place for a year, and moved onto the site at this RV resort on the 1st of June, and I'm here until the 31st of May. I felt like I needed to be in place for a while, and it is shaping up to being a really good decision that was made, because there is so much that has been happening this year that being in one place and not traveling around has helped immensely to get a lot of projects finished, to start some new projects, to get some things in place, to get into sort of like a routine. And then looking ahead at 2022, it's going to be, well, what am I going to do next year when I want to go out traveling? I've still got my Monday through Friday commitments. So what am I going to do about those when I'm traveling? And then it was sort of like, well, you could still travel. You could, travel Saturday and Sunday. And I'm like, yeah, that only gives me. And so I'm looking at my schedule and everything else and thinking, okay, how can I change? Is there a way I can change the schedule around to allow me to travel on the days I need to travel, since I normally stay 2 nights in one place? So then it's sort of like, well, maybe I could get on the road on a Friday morning, get near to where I need to be for camp that night, because setup doesn't take long. It doesn't take long. It's about 30 minutes from when I arrive on a parking site to when I'm completely set up. And, I won't need to set up Zeffie's crate while we're traveling. The computer, but the computer will be during the week, wherever I stay during the week. So that takes a little longer, but I have the laptop that I can use during that time, until I get the time to unbox the computer, get it done. So, I'm thinking of different ways. How can I travel next year and also have time to go and see some of the sites and some of the places? Some places may require me staying 2 weeks. Who knows? But we're going to figure it out. That's what all this part of this planning thing is all about, getting ready for next year. I have my 2022 planner in place. It already has some fixed events in there. So now I'm looking at, okay, if I want to travel, how am I going to travel around those and that sort of thing? And how can I avoid traveling on weekdays so that I can still do my commitments and everything else? So it's a lot of fun, having fun with this right now. But yeah, it's going to be, 2022 is going to be a good year. I'm still trying to find my word. Like in 2020, my slogan was 2020. What was it? It's on my water bottle. 2020 vision beyond what you can see. It's all about stepping out in faith. 2021 was all about fun. It's all about fun in 2021. So I'm trying to come up with a catchy phrase for 2022. So I'm going to be working on that one too. But anyway, favorite holiday / vacation memories. Ooh. Well, it's not really a vacation one, but it's kind of cool. I had to spend 3 weeks in Melbourne one year because the computer company I was working for. I'd started off working on the help desk and got that all into shape and everything else, and then I moved over to the contract side where I had to and became sort of like the system administrator for our software that we used on the help desk, where the calls came in, we logged the calls in, assigned them to the engineers, be it hardware engineer or software engineer. And then we had to, but in that system, we also had to have what equipment our clients had on contract. And the stuff that was on contract, their contract covered certain pieces of equipment or software, then we could provide the service. If the item wasn't covered, we had to let them know what the cost was and all that. And it was keeping that system up to date, which is where I went from the help desk to keeping the contract side up to date with the system and being the system administrator for New Zealand, as well as doing the training for the engineers to help them being able to close their own calls so they didn't have to call the help desk to get the calls closed. So that was part of my responsibility. And while I was on that contract side, because I was a system admin person and I knew the system inside and out, they then sent me to Melbourne for 3 weeks because they were actually going to be moving the help desk to Melbourne. So, and they had, it was funny because the girl that I ended up working with was actually a New Zealander, and she was former Royal New Zealand Navy, and I was for Royal New Zealand Air Force. So we had a lot that we had so much in common. It was so fun. But it meant that her work day and my work day, we started at 8 o'clock in the morning and went till 2 o'clock in the afternoon because we were working. No, hang on. Sorry. We started at 5 o'clock. 5 o'clock to 2 o'clock, 5 a.m. to 2 a.m. No, sorry. Back up. 6 a.m. to 3 p.m. Because it was 2 hours. 6 a.m. to 3 p.m. So we were working the New Zealand hours. So she would pick me up at 5:30 in the morning and drive me into work. And then after work, she would either drive me back to the hotel or I would walk up to the train station and hop on the tram. They had this free tram that went around the outside of the central business district. And it was one of those touristy things. And then and it had a stop right at the end of my street. So I'd just hop off there and walk half a block to the hotel I was staying in. And the hotel was really cool. It was set up as an apartment. So you'd walk in, there'd be a bathroom over here, and then you'd walk into this big room, and there was a bed over here. There was the living area over here, and behind that was the kitchen area. And so I even would go shopping for groceries and have them deliver it rather than having to walk them back to the office, because it was, a couple of miles to the grocery store. So I'd walk down there, do the groceries, pay for them, and get them delivered to the hotel. So they would be there when I got back, and they would keep them in temperature controlled things. They would time it that I would be walking in the door at the time they were delivered. So it worked out pretty well. But the things that I got to do, because I was finishing at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, by the time I got back to the hotel, it was like 3:30. I still had plenty of time to go out and see and sightsee and stuff. And that's what I did during that time, is I would go out. And before I had left for Melbourne, because I knew I was going to be spending some time there, I had pulled up all of these tour guides. I had the map laid out so I knew where work was. I knew where my hotel was. One night I actually stayed up extra late, which I paid for the next day, but that was okay. And went to the theater, because where I was, I walked out of my hotel. There was a back doors of a theater in front of me. I walked down to walked down towards Chinatown, because Chinatown was the next block down. And there was 2 theaters opposite each other on the cross street. And then there were another 2 theaters. There was like 5 theaters in that block where I was. And I went down to one of them one night and saw Blood Brothers, which was a really cool musical. And I found out the next day when I told them, they said, "Oh, what did you do last night?" I said, "I went to see Blood Brothers." And they were sort of like, oh, did you go into the bar afterwards? I said, no, why? And they said, oh, the cast comes out into the bar about 30 minutes after the curtain drops. The cast all comes in there and mingles with all the audience. I says, oh, didn't know that. But apparently that was a thing there in Melbourne, that when the production finished, about 30 to 40 minutes after they'd finished, the cast would come in to the bar that was there at the theater and interact with people from the audience. I thought that's such a cool idea. But that was the only play I got to go and see while I was at the Pirates of Penzance was on, because that was on the theater directly opposite the one that Blood Brothers was in. So I got to go see that. I also got to have meals in different restaurants as well, because Melbourne, where I was so close, was right there in Central Business District, kind of on the outskirts. But I could walk a block, I'm in Chinatown. Walk another block, I was in Korea. Another block, I was block over, I was in Little Italy. Another block the other way, I was in Little Greece. And so I was able to go around to these different areas and try different foods and stop in little cafes and things. And there was lots of little cafes and stuff that were restaurants as well, and stop in there and have, sit there and read my book and have a meal. So that was kind of cool. And then a short walk from where I was this really cool shopping mall that had this glass cone, upside down cone on top of it. Well, what the heck's that for? So I went over there, and there's this tall brick tower that went up into the top of this cone. And I had read about this tower, and what it was called a shot tower. And a shot tower is something where they would take the molten lead and they would drop it one drop at a time. And by the time it hit the bottom of the tower, it was a perfectly formed lead ball. And those little lead balls were put into the shots of shotguns, into the shotgun casings for shotguns. So that's shot tower. They were making the little balls that would make up the shot that went inside the casings for shotguns. Probably got the terminology all wrong, but that's okay. But in there too, if you were there on the hour, was it the hour? Yeah, it was the hour. I think it might have been, the hour. They had this big, it looked like a big stopwatch or pocket watch. It looked like a big pocket watch that was up there on one of the, attached to the floor, to the wall of one of the floors up there, because it was all open. It was all under, but all the shops were on the outside. And they had the walkways, the balconies that went around, and then you overlooked the whole downstairs area, so the atrium type of thing. And they had this big pocket watch up there on the wall up there, and on the hour, the bottom of the pocket watch would come down, and then all this animation stuff would start taking place on the clock. It was fantastic. It was amazing. It was incredible. And I always remember that pocket watch because it was just so much fun, and it would go for like 5 or 10 minutes, this whole little show that this little animated thing would put on, and then the bottom of the pocket watch would go back up into the pocket watch until the next hour came around. So I got to see that. They had lots of little really cool stores. I was in there one day and could hear this music start to play, so I went and looked over the railing. I think I was on the second or third floor up, looked over the railing, and down in the atrium area at the bottom of the shot tower, they had ballet classes going on. They had the bars set up, and they had the girls there in their little leotards and little ballet shoes, and they were being taken through their lessons there. And it was some sort of promotion for a dance competition that was coming up, and recruiting new dancers and that sort of thing. And they had girls at different age ranges showing some of the moves that they do and that sort of thing, kind of like it was like a minute watching them in class. So they did the lessons right there in the atrium, and it was really cool to watch because I've always loved dance. One weekend we took my friend who I was moving all the New Zealand stuff to, she picked me up and we went on Puffing Billy. And Puffing Billy is this old steam train, and you access the carriages by the outside door and you go in. And so we ended up with this room by ourselves on the carriage, and we were able to, and we had nice seats so we could sit there opposite each other and just chit chat and look out the window and all of that. And we got taken up into the mountains to, I think it was called Emerald Lake. It was a lake up there anyway. And we got left there and we went for this walk around this beautiful lake, had lunch while we were there. Then we got on Puffing Billy and came back down again. But it was a great ride. The scenery was fantastic. Lush green fresh air. It was awesome. We had such a great day. And then another day, another weekend, she picked me up and we went to one of the markets in one of the local suburbs of Melbourne. And it was like a street market, and they had, the shops had their sales, their sale items out front of their stores, and you could go wandering through those. Picked up some really cool gifts to take back home. We stopped in this little pub and had this amazing meal. We got a ploughman's platter, and a ploughman's platter has like everything on it. It's oval shaped. You've got cold meats, you've got salads, you've got fresh bread on there as well. So you can make a sandwich with what's on your plate, or you can just sit there and eat it as it is on the plate. But there was hot chips, hot French fries. We call them chips in New Zealand. So it was hot chips on there, and salad and hard-boiled eggs sliced, different cold meats. It was almost like a miniature charcuterie board for one, although there was a lot of food on those plates, and it was like $5 a person or something like that. It was insane value, and we had a really great lunch. That was awesome. To sit there, and because we'd been walking for miles up and down these streets at these sales things, was like, okay, we need a cold drink. Well, it's close to lunchtime. Let's go have lunch. So it was really cool. It was a great working vacation is what it was. It was a working vacation. So I got to see most days, like during the week and stuff, I was by myself going around and seeing the sites within the Central Business District. And then on the weekends, Lynn and I would get together and go, and she'd take me different places. And one of the ones, she takes me into this hotel, and I says, why are we coming to this hotel? She says, you'll see. And we went up to like the 25th, 26th, 27th floor, somewhere around there. And we go out, and there's like nobody there. And I think we were in their conference rooms or something. And she looks all around and she says, go into the men's room. I looked around and went, what? She says, trust me, go into the men's room. I said, what if there's somebody in there? She says, oh, you'll figure it out. She says, but just go into the men's room. And so you open up the first door, and then there's a second door. So I banged on the second door and went, housekeeping, and opened it a crack and went, housekeeping. Nobody responded. So I opened the door and went, directly ahead of me was floor to ceiling window that had this gorgeous view over Melbourne. And there were urinals lined up along the windows. And that is the best sight ever. And I didn't want to get caught there, so I didn't stay long. I didn't take any photographs. But there was just this floor-to-ceiling window with a row of urinals along the front, in front of the window there, and this amazing view over Melbourne. And I went back and I said, that's amazing. I said, what does the women's one look like? So I went into the women's one. It was kind of the same, but it just didn't have the same impact. But that was a lot of fun, that one. But anyway, so, you can go on great vacations. They could be short vacations. They can be working vacations where you're there to work, but at the same time, you have time off to go and sightsee as well. What conferences have you been to where you've had a working vacation, where you've come in a couple of days before the conference, had a couple of days sightseeing, stayed for the conference, and maybe you might have stayed a couple of days after to do some sightseeing in the area that you were in. I've done that on a lot of conferences around the US. I have driven hours to get to a weekend conference to turn around and drive all the way back again. I've had some ones where I didn't get home till 1 o'clock in the morning and things like that. So, yeah, that was an interesting trip, that one. I got stuck between all these 18-wheelers on the I-81 in Virginia. That's a story for another day. But anyway, I got to go. I got work I got to get done. Go out, have a super fantastic sparkling winning Wednesday. Don't forget to celebrate your wins as they occur. Celebrate the wins that you've had this week. And we will catch you back here around 6 p.m. this evening, Mountain Time. Hey, Conera.